First, tonight, when we thought COVID-19 was finally in the rearview mirror, an entirely different outbreak has reared its ugly head. I am talking about monkeypox. We hear so much about it, but it seems we never hear from the people who actually have it. And that's about to change because we are going to talk to two men battling the virus right now. Something that starts out looking like a pimple, but then gets much, much worse. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control has now taken the rare step of activating its emergency centers operation to study and control the spread of this virus. They usually only do that for public health emergencies like hurricanes, earthquakes, oil spills, and yes, of course, COVID-19. As of now, there are 459 probable or confirmed cases of monkeypox in the United States. That is not a lot for a country this size. So why are the health officials so concerned? Well, experts say 2 years ago, many in the health community were caught flat-footed when COVID hit and they couldn't keep up with the cases. They do not want that to happen again, so they're trying to be more prepared this time. And for that, scientists are looking to other parts of the world to gauge how quickly the monkeypox virus is actually spreading. This time, Europe is the epicenter of the outbreak. Cases there have tripled in the past 2 weeks, with 4,000 now being reported. 25% of them are in Britain. Cases have also been identified in 10 countries in Africa, 6 Latin American countries, and 2 Asian countries. However, like in the early days of COVID, awareness about the virus, it's quite low, and there is not a lot of testing set up, so doctors warn that the true number of cases could be a lot higher. Here are the symptoms of monkeypox that you'll want to watch out for. Fever, headache, muscle aches and backaches, swollen lymph nodes, chills, exhaustion. And this part is key. A rash that can look like pimples or blisters. It usually shows up on the face and inside the mouth, as well as on other parts of the body like the hands, feet, chest, and genitals. The rash goes through different stages before healing completely. The illness typically takes 2 to 4 weeks to clear up totally. Some people get the rash first and then the other symptoms. Other people just get the rash. Earlier today, I had the chance to speak with fashion influencer Maxim Sapozhnikov, who was recently diagnosed with monkeypox. He lives in Europe, where the outbreak is the most severe right now. Here is some of my conversation with him describing the symptoms that he had and why there could be other people with monkeypox walking around and infecting others without even realizing it. You know, we hear so much about monkeypox, but we don't hear from a lot of people who actually have monkeypox. What is it like? Like, what does it feel like? Like the symptoms?
Okay, so like I've got the monkeypox more than 10 days ago, and actually I'm still dealing with this. You know, like you can see that I still have this kind of, you know, like, how you call it? Leisure, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have this kind of leisure, so still like it's healing, but I still haven't it. So I'm self-isolated for more than 10 days. I think it's going to be taking me at least for 2 weeks. So how it was that? So it was on the 19th of June, I came back home and I felt tired and I have a little bit of fever. So I was thinking it's just, I'm living in Milan, it's super hot outside. So, and it was during the fashion week here and I was like crazy running around and everything. So I was thinking, oh, it's just like, you know, the weather, like I was tired and everything. So, but I didn't have any other symptoms. So it just was a fever and had a very heavy headache. So the next day I'm waking up and I'm still having this. So I done my COVID test and because like the first word comes in, like it's okay, it could be COVID. And I luckily had 2 times COVID already and plus monkeypox now. So, and then, and then just like felt tired. I stayed home, thanks God, I didn't go anywhere. It lasts for 1 more day. And on the 3rd day, I realized that I have a small pimple on my finger. So on that time, honestly, I have no clue that it was a monkeypox, and I heard about this on the news somewhere, some here, you know, like, but I didn't even know the symptoms. But thanks God, I'm very social. I went online on the Insta stories and I found a very nice doctor from US, Darren, his name. And he was like actually posting the symptoms and the photos of the lesions, you know, how it looked like. And I was like, oh, okay, I have in this finger like kind of small pimple. It's like unusual that I have here, but it's could be because sometimes I have some like, you know, like acne or pimples. It can happen. But I don't know why, but I was thinking, okay, let me check. So I went to see online and I see the like symptoms. It was a headache. It was also a little bit of fever. And actually on the third day, there is no fever anymore. So when the pimples arrive, there is no fever. So I contacted my doctor right away and asked what I should do. Of course, like they not experienced in that, and told you need to go to ER room on the hospital if you want to get some information. So I went to the ER of the hospital, and I told that I think I have symptoms of monkeypox. So first of all, they asked me to wait for a few hours, because I mean, like almost for 5. But I told them, guys, like I have symptoms of monkeypox. I don't want to be around the people, and everything, like for a long period. So maybe you can just get me tested, or can I come back later? So they suddenly get me in, and they put me in the separate isolated office. And the nurse came, took my blood test, took my cardio test, and then he did a COVID test, and then he did 2 tests for the monkeypox. So it's a tampon in the throat, and also they take the material from the pimples that I had. And that's it. The doctor came, he told oh, okay, we need to wait for the result, but it could be actually the monkeypox. In that moment, I asked him, how many guys you have already the cases? And I told oh, maybe 20 or something. So not that much, because it's a big hospital in Milan. And I asked them what I should do. They told me nothing, just wait, don't do anything. Should I take some medicine, or should I take some vitamins? No, nothing. I got a lot of questions now from the people how understand it's a pimple or it's monkeypox pimple, It's different sensations. So you actually feel a little bit painful, a little bit itchy, not so much. Somebody have more, somebody less, but not so much. But definitely you can point the zones where it is located in your body. I caught it on the first stage, when as soon as got the fever, I stay home, and I haven't seen anybody from that part, apart from the doctor. So if it was another person, probably that didn't have this information, so probably they would think on the third day that the fever passed, they got a couple of pimples that could happen, and he couldn't go out and meet people and everything.
So that is what it's like having monkeypox in Europe. I want to focus on what we're hearing in the United States, where there has been quite an outbreak in some places. I'm joined by Brian Thomas. He is a travel nurse who is on his 6th day with monkeypox. Tell me, Brian, 6 days in, how are you feeling?
Very similar to our friend that just spoke before me. The really bad, systemic symptoms, the ones that are like the fever, the malaise, and the headache. The headache was really bad, lasted for 3 or 4 days. And then when those go away, you're really just isolated and alone dealing with these lesions. So that's really what I've been dealing with the last couple of days, is just a little bit of itchiness and, trying to heal these wounds, essentially.
So how did you know it was monkeypox? Was it because of the lesions? Walk me, did you go get tested? How did you figure it out?
Yeah, so I'm a nurse, so obviously I already had been on the lookout for this. I knew that I'm gay, and I knew that it was going around it's most prevalent in my community right now. So I had this fever, and I had this malaise, and I was really tired, and I took a COVID test just like he did, and it was negative. And then as soon as I saw some suspicious marks, I knew immediately. I said, I need to get tested. It's going around right now. So I contacted my provider, and I said, I think I have monkeypox. And they were like, why don't you send us pictures? I don't think they believed me at first. And then luckily I have a really great clinic. I go to an infectious disease clinic already because I'm HIV positive. So they had a really great system. They brought me in through the bio unit and took me in, got me tested and out, and had my results within about 24 hours.
So how long, Brian, do you think you'll have to stay in quarantine? If you're on day 6 now, do you have any idea how long this will last?
So that's kind of the most frustrating thing about this illness specifically, is that it's not like COVID where they're like, okay, you isolate for 10 days or isolate for 2 weeks or 5 days. You have to wait until the lesions are completely healed and there is a layer of healthy skin under those lesions before you're deemed non-infectious any longer. So it's kind of a waiting game, and it really will depend on person to person, like how fast your body heals and clears the virus. So I'm not sure how long I will have to quarantine. I'm hoping that it is less than 2 weeks.
So, Brian, you're speaking openly about this. Maxim, who we spoke to, he was willing to talk with us, but it seems like there's almost a stigma here. A lot of people who have monkeypox don't want to talk. It almost reminds me when I was covering the beginning of COVID, people didn't really want to talk about it. They were almost embarrassed. What do you think that stigma's about?
Well, I think I think at first there's been a lot of talk about how this is just in the gay community and other people don't have to worry about that. That's what some of the media had been reporting. And I think it's just with any infectious disease, there's a lot of stigma. Any infectious disease, people equate it with being unclean or dirty. And it's just really like ingrained, I think, in our society. So people don't want to share that information. My social media platforms are all about being an HIV positive healthcare worker, being open about that. So that's why I felt that I needed to be public about it as soon as I knew, so that other people could know about it and see the face that it's really not that big of a deal. It definitely isn't great, but it'll be okay.
Yeah, it definitely helps other people, I think, when you talk about it, because Maxim was mentioning that when he first got it, he got on social media trying to find other stories, and he wasn't able to find very many because people didn't want to talk about it. So I think when you're open about it, it probably makes other people feel better about it. Brian, thank you for coming on tonight. I hope you feel better soon. I hope that the lesions go away and you can finally get out of quarantine.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You got it. Okay, I want to bring in someone who knows a lot about monkeypox. Dr. Seshadri is a board-certified physician and Plus Life's chief medical correspondent. Okay, Dr. Seshadri, we heard those two young men talk about what it is like to have monkeypox. Is this something we should be worried about right now?
Yeah, I'm so happy that these two individuals came on, because you can actually see for yourselves how deadly it is not, right? So I don't think that we should be worried. I definitely think that we should be cognizant about this. And I wanted to put this into perspective. So since January 1st, the WHO has reported over 3,400 cases with 1 death, compared to what we know about COVID-19, which has caused over 530 million cases and over 6 million deaths. So I'm going to say that we shouldn't be too worried about it, just cognizant about it.
And there's a vaccine with monkeypox, right, Dr. Seshadri? I mean, that seems like a big difference too.
Correct. I mean, monkeypox is very genetically similar to smallpox. Currently, we have 2 vaccines that are available to those that are at high risk.
Do you think that there are a lot more cases than what we know about? Because Maxim, who I spoke with first, he said when he first thought maybe he had it, he Googled monkeypox, and all the pictures that popped up were like these awful rashes, and he just had like a few little pimples. That's how he described them. I mean, do you think there could be people walking around that think like, oh, I just have a few little pimples on my hand, it's nothing, and it's actually monkeypox?
I do think so, because the illness or this virus can present like flu-like initially and then followed by the rash. But there are cases where people can just have the rash without the flu-like symptoms initially. But just like with COVID-19, there were a lot more cases, I think, that were not reported.
How do you get it? How do you get monkeypox? How is it spread?
So it's mainly spread through direct skin-to-skin contact, or contact with the liquid that's in the vesicles or the blisters and those rashes, or with close contact with respiratory droplets. But you have to have sustained close contact with the individuals that are positive for monkeypox. And then we haven't mentioned this, but It can be spread from animals, exotic animals in endemic countries, mainly in Africa as well.
So if you, let's say you're in a bar and, you know, sometimes bars get really crowded and you're bumping up against other people and you're trying to work your way through the crowd, could you get it that way if someone has it?
I would say that you'd have to have sustained contact. So if you're just rubbing up against somebody, not really, but if they have open lesions or open vesicles and you do touch them and then touch yourself, then more likely. But not just by grazing up against each other, or if you're in close, like it's a rave, right? So you're close up against each other and there's a lot of respiratory droplets and it's there for a sustained period of time.
Because I think there's been this misconception that it's only sexually transmitted. And that doesn't sound like that's the case.
No, I think that with it's sexually transmitted because of the close contact and the sustained close contact, like I've been saying. And unfortunately, there has been a stigma, like Brian had brought up, and I'm glad that he brought this up, that this virus is only infecting gay men. But I think we have to recognize that there's certain social networks that we're hearing about because of this close contact within these events that we've heard.
So is there anything that we should be doing now? I mean, do you recommend trying to, I know there's not a lot of the vaccine around. Should you try to find the vaccine? Should you try to get it? Should you just relax? What do you recommend?
I'm going to say relax, be cognizant, and then if you have any suspicion, right? So if you've been in contact with somebody that's possibly had monkeypox or definitely had monkeypox, or you've been in contact with people in a social network with confirmed activity, you've traveled outside of the United States where there's confirmed cases, or you've been in touch with exotic animals, then of course you should take action, right? You should go and see your nearest healthcare provider for possibly getting a vaccine and being checked out.
Yeah, I think it's partly just the name that kind of freaks people out. Monkeypox. It sounds so scary, you know, but you're right. We heard from those two guys. It doesn't seem as bad as what your mind sort of thinks of when you hear monkeypox. Dr. Seshadri, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it tonight.
Thank you for having me. Have a great night.
You too. Happy 4th of July.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.